Okay. So definitely we need to think through, how education has changed. And in the past 5 months, it has changed so much than it has in the past century. So how will we shape the future? How will we shape what education looks like? How will we, in turn, as a result of that, change the way in which not just education is shaped, but the future of our country, the future of our people. Okay. So initially, within the Lagos state government, we, ensured that, schools were closed due to COVID-19. And we knew that we had to rapidly, digitalize our education using the available resources and platforms. And then we really had to start thinking through, the scenario planning for reopening. Immediately, we started thinking through that. We had to start thinking through distance learning, blended learning, and of course, face-to-face learning. We really had to think through what key things need to be done in person. And that does vary from school to school and from community to community, depending on the resources that are available to you. For some people, they may choose to use face-to-face time to have check-ins to make sure that people are healthy and emotionally stable and all. And for other people, it could be, a time to go over subjects like science, because we know subjects like science are practical, and that is a time that children need to do that type of content. So we really have to think through what this would look like and at scale. So currently we're going through in the Office of Education Quality Assurance, and through the state, we're monitoring revision reopening. So right now, children in SS3 that are sitting for WIAC and children that are sitting for NECO BECE are in school for the purpose of revision toward their exams. Everyone else is still at home while we continue to look at the numbers of COVID, and we continue to look at what is possible for schools to not just to be open, but to stay open, okay? Then obviously looking through during this time, what lessons are being learned about schooling, about social distancing, about hand washing, those things we know to keep COVID to the side. We're harvesting the insights and we are reimagining education. So we can go to the next slide. So there are different, when we hear the word innovation, there's so many things that we hear. It's a sort of buzzword. And these are just a few myth busters that I really want you to think about. So these are things that you may have heard or may not have heard. So 60% of jobs in 2030, the jobs that we have today in 2030, they do not exist. Okay, today, they do not exist today. And we can and we should prepare students for the jobs that don't exist yet. So how is that going to change the way that we teach? How is it going to change the way we discipline or reward our students? How is it going to change the physical space that we have children educated within? Okay, so the world at large, we need a new curriculum, and it's unlike anything that we've seen before. So we really have to have an open mind toward what we are preparing our children for. There's something I saw recently that reminded me about the purpose of schooling, right? We know that years ago when schooling began, it was to have, children work on farms, eventually work on farms, and as a result, working through the calendar, and also preparing children to become adults that work on factory lines. Now, it's not the case anymore. The education that we're giving our children has to be drastically different. It has to be intentional, and it has to be bold. Okay, it has to be bold. If we're thinking through jobs that we have no idea whether or not they exist. We can go to the next slide. Okay. So these are the facts. So 60% of jobs in 2030 do not exist today. So this was from a 1999 study. Okay. Um, so when people say we can and we should prepare students for jobs that don't exist, this can't be done because we can make them more agile, right? We can make our students more agile. We can make our learning environments more agile, more resilient, okay? And to this other one, the world needs a new curriculum. We just have to change it again. We need to improve and be more flexible with what we have. Next slide. So digitization of teaching and learning pre-COVID. We know that there's a way in which, we used tech pre-COVID. We know that for the most part, we use it to supplement the work that we're already doing in the classroom. So a lot of our high-ranking schools, they had a digital component. Some students have to take computers to school and all that. But at the time that COVID came, everything had to quickly change, okay? New technologies have been creating new ways of teaching and learning, but adoption, was slow. Private school parents have had increasing global options, but few ever really explored these. I know myself, for instance, I have considered at some point homeschooling my children, and I kept sort of putting it off until I actually had to homeschool my children. Okay, so teachers, parents, and students had low levels of access to technology. Okay, if we can go to the next slide. Okay. So over the past few months, we've noticed several different things. Okay. Some schools adopted learning platforms, learning management systems, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, such as the one that we're using now. And some schools were able to support their students pretty well. For some schools, it wasn't much of a leap for them because they've been doing these things already. Okay. Still, many communities struggle with access to devices, power, and internet. And I think when we think through the needs of the majority of our students within Lagos State, students in low-cost schools, students in public schools, this has been the case. I know that within within the ministry, we were very quick to think through, what the availability was or is of our students. So we quickly utilize TV and radio, and believe it or not, not everyone has access to TV and radio. So the Ministry of Education, I know the wife of the governor, and council also donated many radios to communities. So we really need to think through, where we are now as a society and where we want to be. Oftentimes when I think through, everyone having access, we need to think about how this is going to feasibly happen within the confines where we are now. And I think that as we go about this process, I think especially, as a government, we're recognizing that although we want to get to a place where everyone can go online and have a device and get their learning on, we recognize that it's easy, just like any good teacher, right? You meet people where they are. And it's important to work with those resources that ensure that students are learning today. So even though we have students on WhatsApp platform, WhatsApp schools, we have students on using TV, using radio. Some people have no access to technology and are using paper packs. So, we recognize that if we really want to ensure that learning continues, we need to be able to reach children at their different, and families, right? We need to be honest that it's not just children, right? Because children exist within families. And during this time, these families have been the one, executing that education, either through supplementing with their use of internet facilities, devices, and actually coaching their students, right? So if there's any other time that people had a respect for educators, I would imagine that it is now. Okay. So, um, you know, the Okay, so how will we be stronger going forward? So we're thinking that we definitely need to increase and we need to improve the use of research-based teaching strategies, right? So we can't teach online the exact way we taught in school. There was a day that I was observing one of the lessons of one of my children, and the child, I think, muted the teacher, and then the teacher kicked the child out. And I was thinking to myself that, if there was ever a time that teachers needed tools on discipline, it is now, because now you cannot intimidate your students, right? Now you cannot, wave that cane around. Now, we see who actually knows how to do classroom management. So we need to make sure, and this is just one example, but we need to make sure that it's not just a transfer of what is done in the classroom is now done online. There's actually a shift. There's a change that occurs, and we're recognizing that online learning, blended learning, distance learning, whatever you want to call it, the mix of all or none, it has to be had with a different approach. So on one end, it's thinking through on one end is thinking through the technology. It's another end in recognizing that we are in a global pandemic, and a result of being in a global pandemic where people are dying, where the source of livelihood for many families are no longer existent, there's a social emotional component that exists in. So our teachers need to be able to stand in the middle. They need to be able to handle the issues of their own personal spaces, their own families, their own children. And they also need to be able to stand in the gap for children, who this may be a very traumatic time for, or families who this may be a traumatic time for. So I think looking at the time that we're in when it comes to sort of pivoting to this new normal, a lot of pressure is really being put on our teachers, most especially, of course, our schools and our school owners, but really our teachers, because they are the ones that are at the forefront of executing this education. In addition to this, better access to and the use of data. I know that we've had, as a government, conversations with tech, with telecommunication companies, and to figure out how children and families can access our web portals without being charged data, and how we're able to do that at scale. Okay, increase agility. How are we going to be able to pivot easily? How is it not going to be so painful? How can we expect this new normal, right? Oftentimes, even when we're when we're working with children, and for instance, if a child has to get an immunization shot or something, I know I'm always talking with my children about that process, so when they get there, they know what to expect, right? So we almost have to bring this new normal to the forefront. We have to be honest, we have to be transparent about it if we really want people to be agile toward taking it up and running with it. Increase access to and fluency with technology and the different types of technologies that exist. This, of course, does not take away the fact that paper-based and traditional methods of education execution will still be on ground, but recognizing that we have this very large toolbox, right? And we have all these tools, and we can choose the tools that we need for our different circumstances. Next slide. So I love this quotation. The ability to simultaneously pursue both incremental and discontinuous innovation, from hosting multiple contradictory structures, processes, and cultures within the same firm. Okay, so we need to be working from both sides. We can't just say that, schools, you do this in a silo, government, you do this in another bucket. and families and communities, you do this in a separate bucket. It needs to be something when we're thinking about innovation, when we're thinking about where teaching and learning is going, we need to be doing this together. And I think for the most part, we have said it and we have done it to an extent. But what this time has shown is that if you don't have the infrastructure in place, if you don't have the framework in place, your entire system will collapse, right? Because what we've been doing is we've been doing go, 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 go. We've been doing what works for now and what we think will work, for tomorrow. But we need to have a framework in place. So, irregardless of where we find ourselves, be it COVID-19 or be it any other thing, we have a framework that we can refer to and standards to sort of gauge ourselves as to where we are. Next slide. So, innovation in the Office and Education Quality Assurance. Okay. So, development and implementation of teaching standards, improvement, focused and automated school inspections with targeted online courses. So, I'll just talk through those two points first. So, we want to make sure that we have standards that are not just focused on that are not just focused on the here and now. We need to have standards that speak to where we want children to be in the future, okay? So with math, with English, with science, we need to be, child-centered. We need to think through what is it we want the children to be able to do, okay? What is it we want them to be able to create, to think, all right? So the development of these standards are very important. And how do we implement these standards, okay? How do we implement it given the current environment we're in with the scheme of work, with the Nigerian curriculum, with the international curriculums? How are we going to be able to implement this in a way that makes sense? Now, we want to make sure that our inspections are focus at the heart of our inspections or evaluations are improvement, right? I always tell the story about how, there was a time that I was teaching both very gifted students and students that were very low. I taught the entire 10th grade. And within that entire 10th grade, within the entire state, my children had the most improvement within the entire state. And when I looked through those numbers, it's not that I didn't have children that failed. Some children still failed, especially children that were at the lower end. But even within that within that failure, there were students that maybe had gone, believe it or not, from a 15% to a 45%. So even though they still failed, the level at which they were able to leap spoke volumes. And I was very proud of that, right? So we want to focus on improvement. And I know that oftentimes when we look at the type of assessment that we have, it doesn't always lend itself to that type of teaching and learning. But we need to get to a place where the focus is also on improvement. Apart from this, we want to make sure that to the highest extent possible, we are automating key aspects of our inspections. And I know during this time of COVID and WIAC monitoring, we have officers on the field for the first time are filling out, as simple as it is for now until we have the dashboard, just Google Forms, when they go to the school. So immediately at the end of each day, I know how many of our evaluators have gone to the school. I know the time that they submitted it. I know immediately which schools are red flagged. So sometimes technology doesn't have to be something very fancy or something expensive. You can start off with something as simple, as a Google form, and as a system, our office has sort of started along that. Right? So having automated school inspections with targeted online courses. So we've experimented with this right now with having 2 key courses in our office. One being the revision reopening course that all teachers and all school heads are to take that just walks them through. It's a 1-hour course that walks them through the different components of a successful reopening based on the federal government guidelines on the reopening of schools. And then second, we also have a course that is done in partnership with domestic violence response team under the ministry, DSVRT, under the Ministry of Justice, where we've created a safeguarding and child protection course, where we have professionals as well as myself talk about child protection and mandating that all our teachers within the state take that course, and both courses are free. So really thinking through, targeted online courses and how we can expand that offering as time goes on based on our needs. So online courses to include basic skills, leadership, and innovation, and then universal access to curriculum content housed on digital platforms and accessible online and offline, okay? Then last but not the least is increased registration of private schools to raise standards. So right now, the reopening process also has embedded within it is registration of schools, approved or not approved. We just want to know where you are so we can support you, and then we can work from there. I believe that is the last slide. Can we move on? Okay, that is it.
I think it is.
So, okay, so I just want to really thank you. I know that, and I really want to just use this opportunity to encourage you. It's really been a tough time for us all. Those of us that have young children at home, we're begging.
Okay. We can no longer hear you. We can no longer hear you.
Can you hear me now? No?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, you can hear me now. Okay, so like I was just saying, I just want to use this opportunity. I know this is educator focused, to encourage our educators. This is a tough time for all, but this is a time that we will get through. And I strongly do believe that this time has been a blessing in disguise for the education, for the education sector. Those of us that thought we couldn't do online learning, we've rocked it in amazing ways. Those of us that thought we need all these fancy devices to get to our students have rocked it in amazing ways. And I think, it's just been a time of creativity and innovation. I really want to just thank our educators for the awesome work that they've done, even from just checking in with your families and calling them and asking how they're doing. It's gone such a long way. I want you to know that the Office of Education Quality Assurance, we are here for you. We want to make sure that your schools are adhering to standards, but most importantly, we want to make sure that we are supporting you to ensure quality education for all in alignment with SDG 4. So I just want to thank you for this opportunity to speak today, and I'm looking forward to all the wonderful things that this foundation continues to do. And I am a partner for life. In any which way I can support your foundation, I will always be here. So thank you so much.
Wow, awesome. Thank you very much, Ma. That was an amazing 20, 30, 20, 25 minutes. And
oh,
I
my
want
goodness.
to just start from where you stopped, the promise of a support. I think that's very amazing, and it's important at this time for government to collaborate, just as
Absolutely.
the state government has been doing with private organizations, people in the nonprofit sector. And I think it just hits the nail on the head. We can no longer continue education the way that we used to do it. And one other thing you said that got me is the fact that COVID-19 has actually brought us more good than evil, right? It has fast-tracked the education system, and people are beginning to do things that they would not have thought of doing in maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now. So thank you very much, Ma, for taking time to take us through how to reimagine education. Somebody has a question, so before we let you go, asking how to reach Office of the Education Quality Assurance. I want to believe that it's It's all the way to Alausa, but perhaps you have a dedicated line or email that you want to share.
Okay, so any concerns, we have a website, oeqalagos.com. That's our office website, and we're continuously adding things onto it. In terms of email, you can email info.
Okay. Are you there, Mel? Okay, I think we've lost her, but I'd like to really thank. Okay, I would like to really thank Mrs. Abiola Seriki Ayeni. That was an amazing. Can we please put irons together in the chat room? Can we also quickly, express our appreciation to the DGQA, the Director General, Office of the Quality of Education Quality Assurance, Lagos State. That was an amazing session. We're going to get these slides, the slides that she presented, we're going to get it across to all of us. And I must quickly apologize for moving a bit behind schedule. So we apologize for that. We would like to quickly push on because our time is fast spent. We'd like to quickly push on, and I'll do that. Okay, I can no longer take this, asking you for what your major takeaway, from the session. I can no longer take that, but I'll just quickly move on to read the profile of the next speaker. Okay, the profile of the next speaker will be read now, so that we can then move into the next. Okay, I can see that there's a poll. There's a poll on the screen asking if this is your first time of attending the BAF webinar. Okay. All right. So while we take the poll, let's quickly see. I don't know. Can you see my screen? All right. Okay. So session one for today, and that was an excellent presentation here. Session one for today: behavioral management and positive discipline for learners in class and virtual. This is going to be taken by Mr. Aki Benjamin. And I remember the DGQA mentioned, giving an example, or citing an example of how a pupil muted the teacher. I still wonder how that happened. Maybe the pupil was given admin rights. A student muting the facilitator, wonderful. So, and then the teacher just sent the child out of the class. We'll find out if that's something to replicate or something to, desist from. Okay, and that's part of what we want to learn from here this afternoon. Let's quickly learn a bit about Mr. Aki Benjamin before we bring him on board. Mr. Aki Benjamin is a child rights advocate and education consultant, a passionate educator and personal development coach with close to a decade's experience in training staff and middle management of schools and senior executives of companies. He delivers continuous professional development courses for schools and organizations that are intentional about moving from good to great. Aki Benjamin holds a combined honors degree in political science and education at the University of Ibadan. He is also a certified social sector manager. He was programs manager and later acting executive director of the International Youth Enterprise Organization, Junior Achievement Nigeria, JN. He is the author of 2 books, Your Teenager and You, and Turning Your Talents to Treasure. I guess those are 2 powerful books. Would like to, when you come up, sir, please tell us maybe towards the end of your session where we can get these books as well. Mr. Benjamin is, let me add that Mr. Benjamin is a member of the BAF faculty and a very committed one at that, right? And this afternoon we have the honor of learning from Mr. Aki Benjamin's wealth of wisdom. Please, you have the floor. Kindly turn on your mic and your presentation, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, it's a great pleasure to be here today to share few ideas and thoughts with us on behavior management in the classroom and even in virtual classrooms. Okay, so it's been a pleasure, and it was actually a good thing listening to the um, Director of Quality Assurance in the Ministry of Education. And she really helped on discipline and, well, behavior management in the regular classroom and in the virtual classrooms also. So today, I'll just share my screen with us, and then we get right, we get on right away. Wow. Can we see the screen, please?
Yes, we can, but it needs to be fuller. I think it's not.
Okay.
It needs to be a full screen
Okay.
presentation. Yes, sir.
All right.
Awesome.
Okay. So today, really, are just going straight to talk about this ideas. This has been my passion for quite some time because over a period of 26 years in the classroom, I quickly and early enough made my commitment to child-centered education and teaching processes. And I realized that as much as possible, people were used to the other way of doing it. Teacher-centered approach to learning by most of my colleagues without wanting to talk down anybody. There are also great teachers who also practice this. I'm not the only one who is into positive discipline and positive behavior management in the classroom. But we know that it's a major, major issue. So today we're going to define what positive discipline is, which is what we're talking about, behavior management. We want to move away from the old way of doing things. It is high time we did that. We would like to also differentiate between what positive discipline is and what we consider punishment. Because you see, there's a lot of confusion about that. We'd also mention issues about the research. Research is what are the findings that support what we are going to be discussing today. And then finally, we'll talk about strategies for positive discipline and behavior management. We'll do that concerning regular classroom and virtual classrooms. You're welcome once again. All right, so before I do that, I'd like you to share with me, just relate with me, write in the chat box what you consider to be discipline. We're teachers here. I'm sure we are teachers, maybe parents too. What do you consider in your own practice as discipline? I'd like you to share. I'd like to share with me. Share with me in the chat box. I'd like to see your response to that. Are you with me? Okay. So let me see your response to what you consider to be discipline in the classroom. Okay, method of corrections, guidance, correcting a child, okay, good decorum, thank you, thank you. Discipline is self-control, oh, fantastic, fantastic, that's great. Setting a child in the right direction, wow. I need to give a round of applause to many people here, okay, that's fantastic. All right, I think we're actually controlling, okay, somebody says controlling behavior, okay? Controlling behavior. Well, I would like to share with us this definition of discipline. Discipline is not so much what we had thought it is. Because you see, when people say, oh, that particular child misbehaved, I disciplined that child, they meant that they had given that child some strokes of the cane, or they meant they've given that child some kind of corporal punishment. But discipline essentially is teaching appropriate behavior and correcting the child in a firm but kind manner, surely positive discipline. is teaching appropriate behavior and correcting the child in a firm but kind manner. Look, so many times we want to correct the child. So many times we want to uh, correct their behavior, but we do not correct in a we don't use kind approaches. We sometimes come down too harsh on these children. And so that even the essence of the correction we want to make is lost on them. I always tell people, do you want change in the child, or you just want to feel good that you have, disciplined or punished a child? I see people saying it's a method of correcting. I see people saying it's a method of control, a way to control, and that's another thing. You see, the idea of controlling, people talk about class control. I talk about class management, okay? Because we're controlling, it sounds like you are repressing, sounds like, because even, our normal example, when you say, oh, a class is good, maybe a quiet class where nobody is talking, that is not actually an indication that that class is a good class or something great is happening. An absolutely quiet class, like a graveyard, is actually indicative of some measure of undue control in that classroom. We want to manage the behavior in the classroom in firm but kind manner. I tell my pupils and students that, look, Mr. Benjamin will be friendly with you, but I will be firm, okay? But I'll be fair in dealing with you, okay? So let's move on. So discipline is correcting the child from a position of understanding using non-abusive methods. Using non-abusive methods. That's what discipline is. We want to correct the child. How do we gain understanding of the child? Because you see, that's another thing with us. We don't really go for understanding. We just want to punish. Every behavior that you see in a particular child, every behavior the child demonstrates to you has a reason behind it. It has a reason, and we need to understand these children, find the why of that behavior. And from the understanding of what is happening to them and why they behave, we can then begin to correct them in non-abusive methods. And that is very rare. I once worked in a school, because you see, I'm a teacher like you. I once worked in a particular school where children will be told, boy, and I saw that, and I was bitter. I felt, why would you why would you dehumanize children like this? And I worked seriously to correcting that, and then the tone changed over time in that particular school. We need to understand why a child is behaving. A child is in your class, he's just quiet, not talking at all. It's not responding. The next thing you do is beat. You don't know whether that child has witnessed has had some kind of trauma before coming to school. We need to always establish why. So from the position of understanding, we relate with the children. And then, when it comes to raising children and behavior management, is for the child to attain a sense of personal responsibility. If it's only when you are there, that the children behave well. If it's only when you are there that the children behave well, then there is a problem. Hello, are you with me? If you're with me, please send one. Let me see one. Just send yes. If you're with me through the chat room, just send me yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. And so the ultimate goal of positive discipline, thank you very much, yes, is for the child to attain a sense of personal responsibility. Look, if you live the life of the child for him or her, if you had to control that child from childhood to adolescence, when that child leaves your house, you will be very afraid. Because you see, you have not transferred a measure of responsibility to that child that you'll be at peace. I tell people that you can get prepaid peace if you do this, if you use this approach as a teacher, as a parent, that you train up the child, just like the good book says, in the way that it should go, so that when it grows up, it will not depart from it. It is about training, not taming them, okay? It's about just guiding them in the way to go. Sometimes I tell people that you need to do guided and guarded exposure for your child. Guided and guarded exposure. It's not everything you do for them, and it's not everything you go and punish. Sometimes you allow them make the mistakes if it's not so costly, and then they learn from it, and then you are able to correct. People are afraid. Hey, my child, they must. If you don't allow them do things, if you don't allow them learn through experience, they may not learn at all. And so you want to manage their behavior in a way that they take ownership of personal responsibility, whether you are coercing them or not. If it is just your cane that makes them afraid, and that is the only reason why they behave, and it's only when they see you, then you are raising strangers in your house. You are raising strangers even as a teacher. You don't really know that child, because you need to, as a teacher, when I was teaching some primary grade, if I want to leave the classroom, maybe to just go to the bathroom, in those days we didn't even have assistant teachers. All I needed to do was put some kind of exercise on the board that he would need to finish. Finish this sentence. Friendship is this. Love is this. And when I come back, we read all those things. The best write-up is put on the board. I celebrate that child. Sometimes I let the parents know that this was what your child contributed to our class today, and it's all fun, and everybody looked forward to that. So that whether I'm there or not, they behaved well. One of my ed teachers back in the day made other pupils from another class file through my class. Their teacher was seated in his own classroom. For he said, but the teacher is not here, and the kids are well behaved. Some people said, oh, maybe Mr. Benjamin boxed them in. It's not about boxing them in. It's about transferring a sense of personal responsibility to the children, where they know whether you are there or not, they should behave well. All right? I'm moving on, please, so that we don't take time. So now there's a poll going on. Okay. Are you with me? Hello? Okay, so we need to take that poll. But while we do that, I move on with this. Yes, I need your answers to that poll. So what is punishment? Okay. So, but punishment is penalty imposed because of improper behavior. Sometimes people punish children for mistakes that they made. The child has made a mistake, you punish that child for it, for making a mistake instead of correcting the mistake. Discipline corrects the mistakes of children. Discipline corrects their error, but punishment imposes some stiff kind of is imposed on them as penalty for improper behavior. And the aim of punishment is actually to control negative behavior using negative means. What do I mean by using negative means? I mean, violence is not a positive means. Thank you. I can see this. Yeah, the result. Okay. Yeah, that's punishment. Thank you very much for the poll. I can see that. Okay. All right. I like that. Now, you cannot, it is not right to use violence to teach our children how to behave. When we do that, we're using a negative means to correct their behavior. You're using violence to correct. You see some women, okay, your little children, the child beats the mother while suckling. And the mother starts beating that child. A lot of people have asked me, what would you? I say, that's not what to do. Because when you do that with the child, you're teaching that child from that little age that, okay, you're teaching them violence. And the truth of the matter is that a little child, that it looks forward to that thing again. The child looks forward to that again. It looks forward to that again. It becomes a regular experience, and then you want to also do that to others. So whereas you are supposed, I tell such parents, such mothers, do you have something to distract the child? Is it possible you distract? Is it possible you remove the child and just speak to that child, even though you think that child cannot hear, but remove that child from suckling for a while, as little as that. I know you would have your questions when it is time, but so we cannot continue to control the behavior of children, negative behavior, by using negative means. Look at the picture there. And some teachers have even injured themselves over time with all these kind of approaches. There was a story of a teacher who actually, the child dodged it and he hit himself and fainted. We don't have to experience such nonsense as professionals. We need to learn how to do it right. And it's all research based. It is all research based, really, because positive discipline, UNESCO, UNICEF, and other independent researchers have agreed that verbal abuse and corporal punishment encourages the use of violence to resolve issues. Not only that, a new study has showed that countries that banned corporal punishment, that that children, it's safer for children to grow up in such countries because there is less violence. You know, there is less violence. People will tell me, oh, but then this is how we were raised. We should be doing it. Let me tell you, sometimes we need to change old approaches. I mean, we used to give very, very serious tribal marks, and I'm not trying to take away from anybody that has it. I have people in my family with tribal marks. Today, it's no longer the thing we want to do. Back then, they had reasons to do it, but they changed. Female genital mutilation was something that was practiced in Africa. Some still do, but it's a crime. We're all moving away from it. We need to move away from practices that are not ethical, especially in the classroom as teachers. We need to, I mean, you realize that even it's been found out that children who were beaten and given corporal punishments, a study showed that children who were frequently spanked, that they developed less vocabulary than children who were not at the age of 5. By the age of 5, the children who were not raised with corporal punishment and verbal abuse and all of that, they have developed more vocabulary, better use of words than the ones who have been. It's because children can become very fidgety. They can begin to go back into themselves because of the emotional abuse and physical abuse being unleashed on them. And get me right, we're not saying that we should spoil the children, because that's another thing. We say, oh, are we going to spoil them? It is not about spoiling the children, please. It is not about spoiling the children. It's about being firm, but being friendly when you are firm. It's about correcting from a position of kindness and understanding. Okay? And then we say that the strategies to doing this. All right, I'd like to also quickly, before I do this, let me quickly just tell you that discipline is positive discipline is different from punishment, because I think there's something that happens to us. Like positive discipline is rewarding correct behavior. It is correcting misbehavior in a way that is kind. It is treating the child with dignity and respect. It is non-violence approach of correcting children. It comes with logical consequences. It's giving children alternatives. It is also consistent, firm guidance. Okay, what I call guided and guarded exposure. Okay, but punishment on the other hand, it has to do with threats. You threaten the child. Okay, you ignore good behavior from him, but you always punish him for that which is wrong. You don't even catch him when he's doing the right thing to say, well done. You slap, you flog. In Yoruba land, they say resetting slaps. You brain resetting slaps. You do a lot of harm to children when you do that to them. Insulting them, okay? You are shaming them. If you do that and you are my staff, you'll be in for it. Because the child that you sang that song for may not raise up his or her hand again in class for the next how many months, because you've shamed that child, and physical and emotional abuse. You embarrass the child, shouting and yelling at the child. Now, but then how do we go about this? How do we go about executing or carrying out positive discipline? We're saying that behavioral policy is key. Behavioral policy is key. Are you with me, please? If you're with me, please just send yes, so that I know that I'm still very much on with you. If you're with me, just say yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, some people employ humiliation. Yes, some people employ humiliation, and it's not right. It's not right. We cannot go on with that. We cannot go on with that. A child, you tell a child, you cannot do well. I mean, how does a child, how does that kind of child recover from that? They said you that you are supposed to have, you're supposed to have used you to as a monthly stuff away from, one kind of very naughty things that teachers told children when we were younger than this, But you see, that they knew, that's how much they knew. Now that we have access to better information and greater resources, we should move away from that. So let me quickly get into the strategy of doing these things. And I keep saying that, you see, it is easier to pick up the cane. That is the fastest thing to do. But if you want to carry out long-lasting results with children, because the cane, yes, that cane will achieve immediate compliance, but in the long run, it may not. Because you see, you will need a greater frequency of use, and you will need greater intensity of the cane and of corporal punishment to achieve some measure of results if you ever do. And that doesn't mean your child will not, the child will not show you strange behaviors later in life. But it takes much more thinking, thoughts. We need to, you see, to achieve lasting results, you need, for example, in the school, you need your behavior policy. A behavior policy for the school is needed. Even in the classrooms, you need a charter, the classroom charter, which will be in tandem with the behavior policy that your school has, where you and the children can agree as to what is appropriate behavior in class. I expect that would happen in the first day or the first week of resumption with the children. Okay, your daughter is watching with you and she says it's child humiliation. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Thank you. Now you realize that if you start, school is starting, can you set up with the children a policy, a charter, a behavior charter in your class? And it's not about saying to the children, don't do this, don't do that. You need to spell out the kind of behavior you expect them to exhibit. We will be quiet in class so that we can learn better. We would move about gently in our class. We would follow routines. You set your rules in positive tones, statements that tells the children what you expect. Not that don't do this, don't do that. We will not do that. No, it's not about. In fact, some research says that children cannot process the word don't. Okay, and not only that, so we're talking about behavior policy, which is a bigger issue for the entire school, and then a charter for your class, which is displayed clearly for children to see. Okay, so and you model expectations for them. You don't come and be shouting and be yelling at them. You don't come and you are disorganized in that classroom. They look at you and they see you well dressed, so that they will not dress shabbily. You are modeling expectations. You are not shouting. You are using the right tone to talk to them. Okay. Do you have an example of a charter, a behavior charter? Of course. Yes, not on this slide, but if you follow on, if you still get in touch, we can get that for you. Okay. Okay. All right. So you use praise and reward. Praise and reward. Some of us never catch these children doing anything right. We don't praise them. We need to praise and reward, okay? We need to do that. And then there are logical and appropriate non-abusive consequences that you can. Nobody is saying that you should not give consequences to actions. I mean, if you do that, we're spoiling the children. But we're saying that there are ways to go about it. For example, I give examples of logical consequences here. Look, you say you abuse a particular privilege, you lose it. You lose that privilege. I mean, temporary loss of privileges, equipment, or items, you can take things away from them. Okay, let the children be involved in the setting of the rule. Exactly. Yes, I said so. Let the children be involved in the setting of the rules, set consequences by themselves, guide them to do it. Thank you very much, Mr. Lanike Adebayo. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Now, so you abuse it when you lose it. Once you abuse that privilege, you lose it. I keep telling people, for example, in my classroom, way back in one of the schools where I taught, there's a particular fact. I was made that class because that class, what you declare, class because that class was difficult. There was a particular child who was there who was very, very difficult. And all I did was to use class captainship as a measure of reward. And so you need to behave well to become class captain. And that class captainship was not permanent. And I made him assistant to a class captain so that eventually he needed to aspire to that position, and he got it eventually. And then I even allowed him to stay like 2 weeks. So we till tomorrow, the mother is very grateful because we use that and other methods of behavior management we did. If you had incomplete work, You finish at recess. When you use extra time when others are playing, you do your work. So you know that when you waste time during lessons, you put in the extra. I mean, if you are talking during instruction, for example, I mean, you can take time out at the back of the classroom. Don't send children out. Okay. Even sometimes you yourself need time out, because instead of behaving so that you don't do something wrong, take time out and then come back and do the right things. But then personally, when a child is talking in my class, I don't start a Nollywood show. So that you don't increase your Nollywood equity. I just go there, I stand beside that child and begin to teach from beside him. And then I'm affirming those who are doing well. And he's quiet while I'm there. I may actually stay there to teach the rest of class so that I can get my results. Okay, thank you. Let's move on quickly. Okay, we're about rounding up. So first step consequence, if you choose to break a rule, then you choose to receive your consequence. There will be a warning. You can have a warning, and then you can have a phone call to parents if that child still misbehaves. And then we can actually go on to do detention plus phone call to parents. And when I say detention, be careful. I'm not saying that you should waste the time of a child. A child comes to detention with me, you have a paper. You are reflecting on what you did, why you did it. You are telling me what you will do next time when it happens. Okay, and then I'm giving you exercises to do. If you're spending extra time, I'm giving exercises to do that is for your class. And I'm getting teachers to mark that. So you're not wasting anybody's time. You're not giving them repetitive lines to write. It is actually obsolete. We don't do that again. If it's difficult, then you get office referral. You refer to your head teacher, and then you can come with detention. Parents can be called in. Okay, don't send a child out of classroom when learning is going on. Exactly. Teachers need time out too. Sometimes, yes. How can we treat a bullying pupil and the one playing truancy? A bullying pupil. Okay, if I have a bullying child, what I will do is take him through. I need to find out why that child is bullying others. Okay, he would need to write. I'll take him through a reflective session. Write for me why you are doing so, what happened, what you're doing, and then I will get that child to become an ambassador that talks about anti-bullying in school. I'm asking him to write an essay on why it's not good to bully others. I'm asking him to come and read that essay on the assembly. That's not shaming him, or make him do some artworks and everything, to do some kind of campaigning in school with artworks around the school on anti-bullying things. We can approach these things in a much better way. Yeah, so I really have come to the end of this session. Okay, so a question and answer session. I would be willing to get questions from you. Somebody said that, what kind of reward can we give to a child? Okay, so you can have, somebody said, what kind of reward can we give to a child? Okay.
Mr. Benjamin?
All right, sir. Okay.
Well done, sir. I think we should take the questions much later.
Oh, okay. Okay.
During the question and answer session.
Okay. Jointly.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes, because of our time.
Okay. So
right.
that's where I would end this for now. There's so much to say, but then I hope you got a few things from this. So positive discipline is the way to go. Even in the virtual classroom, you set your rules with the children. You set your rules with the children and they agree with you. And then you make your lesson interesting that engages them. Create activities, okay? Use all the facilities available on the platform for them to raise hands or to mute them if they have to be muted and all of that. So those are the kind of things that I like to share with us.
Wow. Thank you very much, sir.
It's 30 minutes
I don't know where to start talking from, but let me just say thank you. I'll leave the reaction to the chat room. Okay. You can stop sharing your screen now. All right. Then we have our great participants tell us what they think of that session. If your chat box is on, you'll see the reactions. Okay. I like the part where you sang Olodo Rabata. I remember how they used to treat us those days. Yes. And for those that went to the kind of schools that we went to, Olodo Rabata, Ojo Ejalo Moje.
Regular thing.
And then they would draw a round. They would draw the zero on the board, put here and put, make it look like a cat.
Yes.
I know that things have changed, but unfortunately, this still happens in a few places. And we hope that through this through sessions as this, we educators will begin to do the needful. And please don't keep quiet. Don't keep quiet when things like this are happening around you. Be the champion for change wherever you find yourselves. I know that we have a lot of questions for you, sir, but let's quickly rush into the next facilitator.
All right.
After which we will then come back to take questions. In fact, I've seen a lot of questions on the chat box. Okay. We're going to just wait till after the second session bears our own mind, and then we then come back to take questions. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Benjamin. That was an amazing session. We appreciate. Please hang in there until we get Mrs. Adekogbe's session, and then we'll come back for questions and answer. Thank you very much, sir. Quickly, people, let's go into Mrs. Adekogbe's session. Mrs. Adekogbe is someone that you've all seen before now. I think she came the very first day of this training. So today she's taking the second session with us. She's taking a session for the second time, and today she's taking session 2. That sounds like a rhyme. And what's she taking us on? Plan and action steps for school improvements, preparing for the new normal. Oh, no, I think this is a wrong, I apologize for this. No, there's a mix up here. Let me quickly correct that. No, that's not. When I was reading the topic, it sounded so familiar. I was like, is this the real topic for today? Okay, let me just project our profile. Then we'll come back to what she's taking us on today. Okay, can you see my screen? Okay, Mrs. Adekogbe is an author, education management consultant, school quality improvement and development strategist, trainer, and public speaker. She is a certified management consultant and fellow of the Institute of Management Consultants. She is a member of several educational reform groups, volunteer in different projects, and has been awarded by several institutions for her impact in the sector. She is the CEO lead consultant of Flourish Gates Global Consults, a management and education consulting firm, and the leader, convener, Bring Back Primary 6 movement. By the way, that movement has a very interesting reason behind it, which I think she's already achieving. A lot of people are beginning to allow their children spend primary 6 in school before they go on to secondary school. Well done, ma. She is a seasoned educator with over 2 decades of experience and has been a management and education consultant for over a decade. She has served at different levels and capacities in preschool, primary and secondary schools, both in the public and private sectors in Lagos State. So if you're looking for a public school teacher and a private school teacher, she is 2 in 1, okay? She has consulted in startup schools for interested investors, helped build structures for schools, and is also a board member in some schools. She engages stakeholders to create awareness in adopting and supporting the new normal in education, remote learning. So for those of you that know the way I always say this, I have the honor of also adding that she is one of the BAF faculty members. She is one of the BAF faculty members. And today, Mrs. Adekogbe will be taking us on the session Differentiation in the Classroom, Learning Styles and Multiple Intelligences. Differentiation in the Classroom, Learning Style and Multiple Intelligences. Mrs. Adekogbe, if you're there, and I know you're there, I have the honor of leaving the floor for you right now so that you can take us through another amazing session. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Martins. I would like to share my screen. Can you hear me, Mr. Martins?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Please go ahead and share your screen.
Okay.
Mute annotation, all of that. It's about knowing what to do also on these gadgets. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Can you see my screen?
You should have shared with them.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yes, once again, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm glad, so excited to be here. I've learned so much from what Mr. Benjamin has said, and I'm sure that we're also here to add to what we know about differentiation in the classroom. So this takes us right to what we have to do today. Yes, can you please quickly go to the chat box and describe this post in one word or in a phrase, what you have on. Can you quickly describe it in one word? What does it mean to you? What does this show? Yes. What does it mean to you? What's your understanding of this? Yes, individual differences. Wow, thank you. Collaboration, group work, classroom, teamwork. Brilliant. This is brilliant. Yes. Okay, creativity. Good. Yes, today our learning outcome. At the end of this module, you will be able to explain what differentiation is in teaching, describe the need for differentiated instruction in the classroom, develop differentiation strategies to use in the classroom, then plan a differentiated lesson. I also want to appreciate the Director of Quality Assurance and Mr. Benjamin. One of the ways that you can also get to establish control, or let me say, not the word control, correct or effect discipline in class is also having a differentiated lesson planned. So Chen Lockhart said this. He said the whole purpose of differentiation is to look at the relevant skill level of students and ask this question: what are we going to do to increase the depth, broaden the extent, and improve upon the knowledge and the skill base of every student in the class, regardless of the starting point? You know, this is one advocate of differentiation. He said, I mean, when we talk about differentiation, what should readily come to our mind is, how do we help a child gain the relevant skills? And so we should be asking ourselves, what are the things? How do we help a child to have depth and broad, knowledge in the concept that is being taught? And so this is what differentiation is talking about. And so differentiation, to differentiate is to distinguish between one thing or the other. It is a process. Differentiation is a process of distinguishing between, two things, two persons, one thing or the other. Differentiation is in the classroom is a wide use of varieties of approaches, teaching techniques, lesson adaptations that educators use to instruct in a diverse group of students with diverse learning needs in the same subject, in the same classroom, and in the same learning environment. So differentiation is knowing the learner. Who is a learner? How does this child learn? Assess the learner. How do you get to assess this learner? How do you get to assess the content, that this child has really learned? Then adjustable assignment. You also differentiate in giving assignments. You don't just broadly write assignment on the board and expect everybody. Your understanding of the learning style of the individual, knowing the individual, helps you to be able to adjust the kind of assignment that you give out. Then your questioning strategy, differentiation, your proper understanding of differentiation also help you to also distinguish your kind of questioning strategy. How do you use questions? What form of questions do you, how do you start off, where and how? Then curriculum approach. Also differentiation, also entails that we also do an approach in our curriculum implementation that will be able to carry all the children along and help them to gain immensely. So now, what are the aims of differentiation? What are the aims? So differentiation also here says is a means of tailoring when instructors, when educators tailor the instruction they are giving to children to meet their need. That means they are what? Differentiating. And so why differentiating? I mean, what is the aim of differentiating? Differentiated instruction aims to improve learning outcomes. When an instructor and educator differentiates instruction, there is going to be an immense improvement in the learning outcome, the learners. Also, it also increases engagement. How? Because you are meeting every child, at their own spot, you are meeting every child where they really need, you most. You will find them really coming out of their shell and getting engaged in the lesson because you already understand what to say. You know the right word to use. You know the kind of phrase, you need to use, for your question. And so these children are able to follow you through. Also, another aim of differentiation is that it's inspired a love of learning. When you are able to differentiate and the learners get to learn in your class, you can be sure that anytime it's time to go to school or it's time to get ready for the online class, they will be there waiting for you to admit them in. Some of them even be in if they have the code already before you come in, because already they know that something new, something inspiring is going to happen. Another aim for differentiating is to increase self-awareness. The children are able to look at themselves and they're able to see that, yes, I learned this. I saw a post, and in the post it says, my teacher thought I was exceptional, I was brilliant, I was smart. And yes, and I really proved that I was smart and I'm smart. So when you make children learn and you don't put them at a very difficult point, they get to learn. And when they learn, they come to realize that, so I can do this. Oh, wow, I didn't know I can do this, because you help them to be able to come to that term. Another aim of differentiation is this: it helps students learn more efficiently and with deep understanding. If you have some more other reason, please interact with the chat box. It helps students to learn more efficiently and with deep understanding. When children are exposed to learning, when children are given the opportunity to learn the way they most understand, you find out that they become very vibrant and they become very creative and they're ready and willing, to join the class, and they have deep understanding. You throw a question at them, you see the way they get back to you and they begin to give you, answers, and you begin to wonder. And I tell you, one or two teachers probably have taught that class, and they come back to you and they began to say, what is wrong with that class, especially Bemini? What's wrong with Chinedu? And you get to class because you are able to adopt, differentiation. You know what happens? You begin to have it, you have it so easy, and the children have understanding, and they could even explain like what happened, so many students. And the other teacher will be wondering, how were you able to get Chinedu to do that? Well, I just look at Chinedu and I decide to handle Chinedu in the best way that Chinedu, will learn. So that is the aims of differentiation. And now, what are the reasons for differentiating? To differentiate instructions is to help children to learn, is to recognize students' varying background knowledge, readiness, language, the preference way of learning, their interests, and also to react responsively. And so why we differentiate in the classroom, why differentiated instruction? Because the classrooms are filled with students who have different needs. Even in the online classes that we do, you need to look at each of these children because the need of children varies. You need to make sure that you are sure that the children have been able to achieve the Maslow needs of hierarchy before you now begin to talk about the Bloom's taxonomy. What am I talking about? Needs differ. A lot of the children that come to class are probably not taking their dinner, their breakfast. Some of them are probably don't even have a place to stay, shelter. Some of them are not even shown enough love. And so they're in class, and you look at them and you want and you're expecting that they will all learn at the same level. No, no, no. And so you need to be very sensitive as educators. You need to get and be able to read, the faces of your children and their countenances, and so that you'll be able to reach them and get to them, and that helps them. The classroom is also filled with students that come from different educational backgrounds. Why? We're talking about the reasons why we have to do differentiated instruction. The children come from different educational background. They come from different family, from different social economic classes. Some of their parents are educated. Some parents are not. Those who come from the background of the educated parent are ready and they flow with you. And those other ones that are still struggling are picking one. So you cannot generalize. I say, excuse me, what are you talking about? Are you telling me you're not here? No, you need to be calm. And then we also have the classroom filled with different children with different attention spans and interests. The interest of the children varies. What naturally means so much to them at different times matter. Like I said earlier, a child who has not eaten, a child who does not know where he's going to sleep next, a child who does not even know, what's going to happen when the mommy comes back from the market or from the office. So many things will be going through the mind of the child even when the lesson is on. And for children, that if you cannot get the attention in the immediate for the first 5 minutes of your lesson, you are likely not be able to get them to take them through. So it's important for us as educators to note this. You should have different language. Because children also have different language. They have different ways, they understand. Some of them at home, yes, oh, audio problem. Are you listening to? Are you getting me? Hello? 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 Hello, Mr. Martins?
Hello, ma, go ahead. We can hear you.
We can hear you, man.
Great. All right. So different language abilities. Some of them understand concept by teaching them in their mother tongue. Some of them, they flow naturally with English. So you need to have a proper understanding of this and help. Even when you are taught in English, you can do a one-on-one personalized learning with that child. Move close to the seat, move close. As a matter of fact, when you do online, you can private chat, you can take a child to a room, even as you do Zoom and do a one-on-one. You could do your dialect and talk to that child to be able to bring that child to that level of understanding. They have different cultural background. These children come from different cultural background. Some of them are Igbo, some are Hausa, some are Yorubas, and there is a way things happen in these settings, and this also will affect the rate at which children learn. And so with this, we also need to differentiate learning. There are different forms of differentiated learning. We have the learning style, we have intelligences, we have learning challenges, and we have disabilities. We are going to major on the first two. When you talk about learning challenges, you have some children they have issues with reading. They are dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphic, and the rest of this. And so if you notice these children are in your class, you really need to also see what you can do to help them to learn. Disabilities, some of them are hard of hearing, some of them have sight, some of them have sight issues, and that the parents are still working on their lenses and their glasses. And so they are all in the same class with you, and you really need to be sure that you are aware of their differences. And so we'll be, like I said, we'll be looking at the major two, the learning styles. There are basic 3 learning styles. They have the visual, we have the auditory, we have the kinesthetic. The visual, we need graphs. These are children that you only need. So that's when you get to teach, you need to have your instructional materials ready. You need to have colorful PowerPoint that you have prepared. You need to have, even when as we work online, have a corner, that you are teaching in your home. Get it decorated. Look for materials that are related to what you have to teach. That those who are visual, we need to see that, and they can connect that with what you are teaching. They need to see PowerPoint. We do videos. We do pictures. We do articles. We do. And for those of them who are auditory, they need one-on-one conversation. You need to talk to them. You need to do a voice note, record, and then let it be, let it get to them, and then they can listen to you. You need to do podcasts. You need to do group discussions. You need to also do video. Video will work for them too. Then oral presentation, we also do for this one. And then for the kinesthetic learner, these ones are the hands-on children. They love to be involved. Listen, you are talking about types of soil, and you have some samples of soil. You have the loamy, the clay, the sandy, until you bring it to class. The visual already, oh, okay, this is it, get it. And the auditory, you are able to explain that, yes, for a sandy soil is sharp, the grains are bigger, and then for clay soil, it is powdery. For the clay, for the other type of soil, it is light. The grains are smaller, but that is for auditory. What happens to the kinesthetic? You need to bring these samples of soil, not just bring alone. Let them test it, test the texture. They want to see how big the grains are. They want to see, how it looks. And so it's easier. And so wherever they go and they come in contact with this type of soil, they can connect. So they need hands-on activity. They like to do the walking meeting. They do role playing, note taking. They are such that you always find them writing. And then they love it when you role play, when you do short drama, when you do short presentation, and they are able to flow along with you. And so learning style, what does it say? It just says that we have different ways that we remember concept. This person need to see, this one need to hear, this need to do. And so visuals need to see, auditory need to hear, and then kinesthetic need to do or to feel. Then we have multiple intelligences. Children also fall into diverse intelligence level, and you can never compare them. That's why you find those of them that flow very well in the areas of their intelligence. Those of them who are naturalists, when you go outside for class, you are just in their comfort zone, and they can relate with the animals, they can relate with the plant, where some other ones are like, no, they have allergy, they can't do that, So you need to observe all of this. And then those of them who are musical, wow, this one can discern sound, and they also discern pitches. You know what's interesting with this one? These are the ones that when you are teaching numbers, you need to turn it to song. You need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You need to come up with songs so that they can pick. I remember I saw a video, in one of the downtown schools in America, and the teacher came in. He was teaching history and was talking about the past president of America, and he was like, how am I going to get to this student? You know what he did? Just say, yes, can we form a song with this? For the 4 presidents of America. Guess what? The children were able to come with a song. They came with a rhyme. I mean, with a theme, and they were able to sing through. And I tell you, till today, these students have a proper understanding, of what is. We remember a lot of these things. How many rivers? Some rivers in Africa, because they were songs. 1, 2, buckle my shoe, 3, 4. These children who are musical can flow. And then you have logical mathematics. These ones, they quantify things. As a matter of fact, if you teach them even in English language, they will want to put it in figures. You teach them, they will want to come out with equation, to support, this. And a lot of them, are all over. And then you have those are essentialists. These ones are the ones who are, even as small as they are, they begin to wonder, what is existence about? And this manifests even more when they become adults. Then you have those are interpersonal. Interpersonal, they sense people's feeling. There are people who can perceive if somebody is happy or somebody is not doing so well, and somebody's countenance, somebody's attitude, because their social skill is high, and so they can read, and so you have these children in your class. How do you plan your lesson? So this one, you need to do a lot of collaboration with them. So this one will love to work in a group and collaborate with others. You have bodily kinesthetic. These ones are the ones that always they are moving. They are the ones that will not sit in class. James is always standing up in your class, even in the online class. You can always perceive, if you are doing virtual, you can perceive that James has gotten up, and you can, James, where are you going? I just want to stand up, and you need to accommodate them, because if you want to force him to sit down, you won't get him at all. So you need to understand this, and they are the ones that they do everything with their body, like me. When they speak with their body. When they do a lot of things. So they are this kind of people. And then linguistic, these ones, they find expression, in words. They can talk, and then the interpersonal. This one, they are people who understand themselves. they withdraw, and they get to relate, more. They are not so sociable, but they are careful even when they talk to people because they understand who they are. Then you have the spatial. These ones are the visualize. These ones are the artists. They can draw. There was a story of a young boy who they went for an excursion, and you know what happened? As they were there, they needed to do a report, and so everybody were jotting down what they were doing. And as they were jotting that down, you know what happened? This boy I call Ade was, sketching every part. They went to the National Theatre and he was sketching every part. By the time they got back and they were asked to submit their report, the teacher saw it and said, okay, Ade, come on, can you explain what you have in your sketch? And Ade explained, and the teacher became the secretary for Ade and started helping Ade, put it in writing. And as this was going on, others to that, and after that, the teacher now projected all the drawings that Ade did. And the other people who took note looked at what Ade did, and they were able to correct some of the things. So a lot of these things happen in our classroom, and we need to get on. So what are the ways of differentiating? How do you differentiate, in the classroom? And from which angles do you differentiate? Okay, how do you differentiate, in the class? What are the ways you differentiate your lesson? You differentiate through your content. What does your content say? Your content talks about what the child needs to learn. What does this child need to learn? What is there for this child to? And so for you as a teacher, you need to know. So you need to do your blooms. You need to understand your bloom. Take them from the lower order to the higher thinking order. When you are forming your objective, you are sure that you do your objective in such a way that it accommodates those children, who are not operating on the higher thinking order. So that you are not just asking questions from those of them who are the high flyers, and then you leave the upcomers alone. And then the average are struggling. No, you need to look at the fact that I have this category of children in my class. And because I have them in my class, what do I need to do? I need to set my objective in such a way to accommodate all of them. So you need to talk about what are they going to do? What is their interest? How do you get resources? And then the process. Another way you differentiate instruction is the process. And what is the process? Your pedagogy. How students acquire information. How did they get to learn? How did they get to see this? So those of them who are visual need to see. Like I said, you brought the sample. You probably are talking about area, and you brought a material area. Yes. What is area? Area is length times breadth. This is rectangle. How do we find the area? The area of the length. I mean, the measurement of the length and the breadth. You add it together. And what do you get to do with that? They get to, and the auditory, as you're explaining that the side that is longer, is the length, and the other side that is smaller is the breadth. You multiply this together, and then what happened to the auditory? I mean, to the kinesthetic. You must come with your ruler. Ensure you have your ruler or your table, and ask the auditory. Ask the kinesthetic learner to measure, and then put the figures down. Ensure that the figure that you have given the visual and the auditory are the same. And so this individual can, be able to multiply, this together and, add together and be able to get the figure, length times breadth. That's so you have to ensure that you differentiate your process, your learning process, the method you adopt so that the children can follow through. Then the product. The product talks about how the student demonstrate learning. How do they demonstrate learning? How do they tell you that they have learned through their learning style? What do you get to do? What do you tell them to do? How do you help them to be able to, for example, in a literacy class, you could do a matching type. You could have somebody do a definition. You can have another person do a short story because you know exactly. And from that, you can get exactly what you have taught them. Then the learning environment, where and with whom this child is learning. Who is this child learning with? Who are those people in the same classroom with this child? So your environment must also be prepared. Your environment must also be talking to the child. Your environment must also be lecturing and must also be teaching. So you must ensure that the environment is ready. You have grouping, you can group, you have your room arrangement, you have your learning responsibilities, you expand the walls of the classroom, you for interaction and allow children to gain ownership of their learning. How do? You group your children. You can group in different ways. You can group by their ability. You can group by, by what they're able to do. And then when you do classroom arrangement, you ensure that those who need to see are sitting in the front, and those who need to hear are not also far, but those also who need to do, so that they don't just sit far back and be engaged in other activities. You also ensure that activities are, and so for us as educators, what will help us to be able to maintain discipline, and is also for us to ensure that we engage the learners in our class, engage the learners. So what are the strategies of differentiating? You know, you do group, like I talk about group them into different abilities. Ensure, take them in and out of class. Let learning occur at the different levels. Ensure that the children can flow with you. Ensure that they are on with you. Paul, please. Ovi, please. You know, and then you do your pods. Do your pod with the student captain. Ensure that like, because you have an understanding of how these children learn, you have put everything in place for them to do. Then you also have, yes, you have a poll there to do. Okay, so you can also create tiered lesson. In tiered lesson is a graduated lesson where you take them from simple to complex. Because you have the ability, there are those children that we readily work, you are doing multiplication. In your multiplication or in addition, you are doing 2 digits. In the 2 digits, you are using numbers that are higher, like 79 plus 68. You know, some students will readily work, but you have those in the class that will be very good to start with 11 plus 13, while some will be good with 56 plus 27. So you graduate that. What do you want to achieve? You want to achieve adding, you know, with 2 digits, you know, and then those ones who can do 11 plus 12, 11 plus 13, we gradually move from that to 20 and they begin to move up. And then you can also create handout for common questions. You increase, you also include hands-on activities and projects. Let them be, let your classroom be engaging. For those of them who are kinesthetic, you can come with a puzzle. You know, come with a lot of puzzle, and they can work with this. They can do. You can also, they can build. You know, they can do building blocks. They can build blocks with whatever you have to do. And for those of them who are in, and you begin to wonder, but I teach in the secondary school. It's also applicable for them. So those in the secondary school, get them activities that get them engaged. You need to plan ahead so that these students can flow with you. They provide study guide, worksheet, and then notes. Then also flip your classroom. How do you flip your classroom? Already send, you know, for example, in the virtual world that we are in, send the content of learning to the parents already, and tell the parent to please allow the children to go through this before your class tomorrow, or you know, on Monday. And so when the children have opportunity to go through what the content is, by the time they get to class, it is engaging. They are interacting with you, and you are not just taking the stage all by yourself. Then the leveraging your students' strength. Look, because you know the ability of your students. And so it's easier for you to leverage on their strength and know what they can do very well and what they need assistance with. Then also practice flexible grouping. You also, when you are grouping, and now listen, let your grouping not be permanent grouping. Let it be a grouping that you can always move from one level to the other. For different lessons, for different classes, you know, you can move, you know, for your grouping, you can move your grouping. Then offer more choices for learners, for learning. And what does this mean? When you prepare your lesson very well, you have a lot of activities that you are prepared, and children, because it's the same concept that you are teaching, and you have a lot of material to drive this concept, a lot of resources, so they can work with any of the resources on their own. What does this mean? It means that teachers need to do more for you to be able to differentiate, you know, learning, differentiate instruction. And if we are able to carry all the children along in class, I tell you, there will never be a case of misbehavior in class, because they are gainfully engaged. Because you know those who need to do activities, and you know those who need to write, those who need to speak, those who need to see, and you have planned activities for them. Those of them who would need to hear music, those of them who need to work with figures, and you have activities for them, you can be sure that you move. Then think, pair, and share. How do you do that? Get them together, get the concept across to them. Let them think about this concept. And as they think about this concept, pair them up. Let them discuss their outcome with their partner, and then let them come out and share. And so you also get them so that you get involved in the learning, and also try digital curriculum. You have a lot of such materials, on the internet that you can get to use. So you get on, and then the children are following you, and you can be sure that you are not leaving anybody behind. Yes, in conclusion, I saw this one and it says, can I have the next poll, please? The next poll, please. Somebody said, I sometimes genuinely think that some of my students may not be able to learn what I teach. And another person, doesn't that mean that you are not teaching them well enough? Doesn't that mean that you're not teaching them well enough then? And then Ignatius Estrada now said, if a child can't learn the way we teach, maybe we should teach the way they learn. What does it say to us? If you have taught in that class over and over, even in the online class, in the virtual class that we have, you have given them classwork, you have given them assignment, and you find that the way they follow through, you are not getting the best from them. What do? You have to change strategy. You have to change strategies. You have to move from the approach that you're adopting and take them to another level. Use another approach. You try as many approaches as possible, and this helps them, to be able to flow with you. So if children cannot learn in the way we teach, we need to teach the way they will learn. So, and I want us to do a reflection here. What is your take home from this lesson? What is your take home from this? What is your take home from this module? Yes, can you interact with the chat room? What is your take home from this module? Did you gain anything? What are you going to do differently now in the online class? What are you going to do differently? Every child can learn. Exactly. Yes. Every child can learn. So you really need to get to know how this child can learn. And if you are able to connect with this child, you'll be surprised that this child can learn. So every child can learn. Every child can. Even those of them with dyslexia, they can learn. Even those with impaired hearing, they can learn. Those of them who always like to jump around. Have you taken time to look at that one who is the kinesthetic bodily movement? Have you taken that out? You are talking about literacy. You are talking about numeracy. Do you know you can get to do that where they stand up in the virtual class? Ask them to stand up. Yes, take 2 steps forward and backward, and then you're already achieving something. Or you are back in the physical class. You take them to this field. Take them to let them move around. Let them measure. Let them measure the table. Let them measure their table. Measure your table. Let them measure the board, and they begin to see. You see what they can do. What's your take home from here? Learning can be fun, and when children are carried on. Exactly. All the learners should be involved. Exactly. Know each child so that you can, develop, learning content that will help that child. Differentiation in the classroom is a way to make learning fun. Do well to understand, the different learning styles of the pupils in your class, and then children are unique. They are never the same. Not even identical twins are the same. And they get to understand it separately. Somebody, you need to just say one word and already. Another person you need to repeat over, and so you don't get angry as an educator. You just, what do you mean? Are you not in this class? Is something wrong? Do you have something blocking your ear? No, you just need to be calm, because every parent, especially in the private school, every parent paid for school fee, and because they paid, all the children must learn. Even in the public school that they are not paying, every child is in your class, is in that class to learn, and so it is your responsibility to ensure that they learn. No child should be left behind. Exactly. No child should be left behind. Yes, carry all the children along. You can do that, and it is possible. And it's all you need to do is to ensure that you are properly position your class. You strategize your lesson, and then you can move on, and you have your children doing very well. The children are doing very well, and they are getting what you have to do because you have taken time. And for you to differentiate your lesson, you know what you need to do? You need to ensure that you study as an educator. You need to have a proper understanding of what you have to teach the children. Ensure that the children, can flow with you. Ensure that the children can work with what you are doing. Look, change what you do over and over. Please, can we put our questions in the chat box if you have any, and, keep talking about the things that you have learned, what you are going to do differently from today. There are things you are going to do differently from this moment, or that you need to do, what you need to do. Take time to study more on this and then learn so that you can carry the children along. And this can be done in all subjects. It can be achieved in all subjects. There is no exception at all. Thank you so much. It is nice, taking this class and being here. Thank you so much. Mr. Martins.
Oh, thank you so much, Ma. That was an amazing session, and I think the way you ended it, I liked it because you already did a recap of your session. So I don't think we should bother ourselves with asking what people learned from your session, because I can see all the interaction. So please, can we put hands together for Mrs. Adekogbe? When veterans speak, you know that these ones are veterans. So thank you very much, Ma. That was an amazing session, and I'm glad that a lot of us could relate with what you talked about, right? Meeting the needs of different learners, differentiation in the classroom. I believe that we all learned from this. However, this is 5:02, so I'm a bit in my rush mode right now. I want to crave your indulgence to take another 15 minutes before we end this session. So if you approve of my 15 minutes request, kindly type "go on" in the chat box. Go on, right? Aha, okay. I can see from Bamishe. Thank you very much for all of you that have given me the go ahead. So on behalf of others that have not typed, I am going on, right? Okay, so I'm going to leave the floor now for Bigway to come up to handle the Q&A session. I believe that Mr. Aki Benjamin is also still in the house, so we can field questions from the audience and have you both take turns to answer the questions. For another 10 minutes, Bigway, please, you have the floor. I don't know. I think Ovigo is having technical issues, but I'm going to have to wait for her briefly because she has the questions with her. While I wait for her, let me quickly take announcements so that we can save some time as well. Let me take a very important announcement, and then we'll come back to address your questions and answers. So I'm sharing my screen now. Last week, we announced that we're going to have a very important session, something extra. It's not really part of the BAF webinar series. It wasn't part of it at the beginning, but we were able to strike a deal with Google to come introduce us to something that is already out there, but I realize that a lot of educators still do not know about it. How many of us know about Bolo? The Bolo app, B-O-L-O, Bolo app. I was opportune to be part. If you know about Bolo, just type in the chat box. Let's know. Let's be sure that I'm not the only current educator here. I use Bolo app. Okay, so there's nothing to brag about. I can't say that I got to know about Bolo before you. Okay, so a lot of us know Bolo, but Bolo has been renamed to Read Along. It's now called Read Along. It's in almost 200 countries, right, across the world. And I think it's important that we take early childhood educators, especially the nursery, but most especially the lower primary classes, on how to use the Read Along app. Okay, so next week Tuesday is the 1st of September. We're going to have a session with Olaiwola Bolaji. Olaiwola Bolaji is the Google Read Along product expert. He's going to come on the same platform to take us through how to use the Read Along app, right, to promote reading and literacy skills, right? It's very important. And for those of you that know, September 8th has to do with something around literacy. I can't remember the exact name of that day now, but it has to do with promoting literacy as well. So it's a day to celebrate teachers and people who are doing some work around literacy. So please save the date, mark your calendars. It's next week Tuesday at the same time, 3 p.m., but a little bit shorter to 4:30. So you're going to be on live with Olai Olabolaji to learn how to use the app, in maybe more than what you've already know. And lastly, on my announcement tab, I have an announcement for week 6. Our time flies. We scheduled 7 weeks just in July, and this is week 6 already. That is staring at us in the face. So next week, Thursday, we're going to come together again to look at 2 important topics: engaging scaffolds that deepen independent learning. And I think that word independent learning is very important, because a lot of us, while growing up, were not allowed to learn independently, right? And it in a way affected us even during, even when we are already adults, okay? So I think it's important we look at that. Secondly, we'll be looking at reflection as a critical skill, tools and strategy for teachers. How many teachers really reflect? Mr. Kenlamu is going to, I'm sure you're going to enjoy his session. So please save your date, 3rd of September, next week, Thursday, is when we're having the week 6, okay? And we want to see a more improved attendance for Thursday. I want to believe that Obigwe is ready now, and I would like to stop sharing my screen and have her come up to take the question and answer session. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Sorry, I was having a little bit of technical issue, so right now I have to speak from my voice system. So, okay, I have questions here for Mr. Akin Benjamin. I believe, okay, he's still on.
I'm here.
One of the questions here is that, do you have an example of a behavior shatter, one that can be seen in the classroom? Mr. Benjamin, that's for you, please.
Well, that's for me, but then I don't have that handy now to give you that during this, but the person can contact me. It's easy. I can always give them. Okay.
Okay, so
did you
the
hear
second
me?
question, so that I'll move on quickly. The second question, I think you were trying to address it initially. You said, how can we treat a bullying pupil and the one playing truancy?
Okay, let me quickly attend to those questions. The first person, the bullying, the child who's a bully, we need to find out why that child is coming up with that behavior. I won't handle a child like that. We have to do anger management for that child, because the child witnesses his father beating up the mother every time at home. So he's bottled up, comes to school to bully others and to display all of that. You need to find out what the child is going through before you start dealing punishments. Okay, and then, like I said, take that child through some counseling, take that child through ways by which he can manage his anger, give him some roles, and then take him through a way where he can become an ambassador to even work to campaign against bullying. You see, you raise his self-esteem by making him somebody who now teaches others not to bully. It's not about, first of all, getting him, punishing him and all of that. Yes, there are consequences and consequences for what he did. But then the greater thing you want to do is to get him to change. For the person who is for the truant, let me tell you something. For truancy, you need to find out what is sending that child away from school. Why is that child? A woman was taking her son to school someday. It was beating the child. The child didn't want to go to school. I said, Madam, why do you want to kill this child? And she doesn't want to. So I said, have you checked what is chasing this boy away from school? I said, have you checked? So you need to check, why is there a bullying class? Is there a very high-handed teacher? Is the lesson engaging? I had a friend who is an egghead. He ran away from Abusie Jumari, in the Bujebubo. He was a truant. But the fact is that the curriculum, I'm sorry to have mentioned the name, but it wasn't being cared for. The lessons or whatever, the curriculum was not taking care of him at that time. He became a very brilliant boy. He became someone who made a first class in electrical engineering when he got to a place where he could be challenged. So we need to be careful, because truancy sometimes is also, once in a while, sometimes, not all the time, is a sign of giftedness. That child is not being sufficiently challenged. He doesn't see why he should stay in class, but that is not always the case. Okay, so you need to find out why. Is there a bullying class? Is the teacher loving? Is the environment friendly? The school, is it child friendly and all of that? Plus, you can reward him every time he gives you the expected behavior. Like I told that mother, I said, when you're taking this child to school, you can just say, well, son, when you go today, this is biscuit for you to eat. When you come back without any trouble, I have another one for you. That's about 10 naira or 20 naira to spend. Well, that may not be what you do every time, but once you get that child to now, because the child doesn't have to associate going to school in the morning with beatings. Because when you do that, the child says, oh, it's school time, it is beating time. So you need to rework that and help that child to manage that behavior. I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Benjamin. Well, we actually have a lot of questions for you here, but I'll just pick one or two more that we can move on. Then one of the questions says, how can I tame or instill discipline in a special need child who likes to show his anger through throwing objects around and beating whoever is close to him?
Now, that's a special need issue. And in the first place, let me first correct you. You are not taming that child. That child is not an animal. You're not taming. Okay, you want to teach, you want to train. Okay, special needs children are children and they can learn. It depends on how and when intervention was started for that child. Because you see, it is possible to create routines and to help special need children. It all depends on what kind of special need issue that the child has, but you need to get expert advice also on how to work with that. Because if it's a special need issue, you may need to create some accommodation for that child, what we call accommodation in special need education, okay? And then safe for that child and for others, so that he doesn't even have what to throw around in the first place. And then you help that child. Every time that child behaves the way you want, you reward that child for being calm. You see, if you by that, like the contingency plan that the former speaker, the other facilitator about a week or two ago was talking about, is this issue of reward and consequence. Okay, fine. So if that child is throwing tantrums, you can reward him every time he doesn't do that. And so that you begin to elicit more of that. And then you can make the environment safe for him and for others to learn in, so that he's not throwing things at them. It is not about taming that child. It's about engaging that child in a way that you can get distractors, something that will distract him for him to learn, so that particular activity of that you are not expecting is actually reduced, and then you reward more of what you want and you get more of it. That's what I would advise that person.
Okay, so finally, let me just take one more question for you, and I think that will be the last question I will be taking for you. It says, a child that is adamant and refuses to carry out stated consequences, what should a parent or trusted adult do?
Beautiful. That's a good one. You see, when you have such a child, that child is contesting power with you. That child is trying to test the patience, and wants to gain territory with you as per authority. So there is, every time you tell a child to do something and they don't do it, and then you repeat it and they don't do, you are losing authority. Let me repeat that again. You've told the child not to do that thing. That consequence is not, and then you keep insisting, and the child, your authority starts getting eroded. What you need to do is, one, get maybe your boss or your supervisor involved, so that there's a referral for that child. One, so that you're not the only one handling it. Two is that you get the parents. What you will do is that the parents must come in and then set some consequences at home until the parent gets a report from you that the child has done or has behaved the way you want in school. Then the consequences at home also subsists, so that the home and the school then work together to get that child to behave. I don't know whether I'm clear on what I've just said. Hello, are you with me? Oh my goodness.
We can hear you, sir.
All right. So you need to get the parents involved alongside with your supervisor or your boss in school, so that the consequences you are setting and expectations you have in school for that child, parents also agree with you in the presence of the child, what the child will miss at home whenever it gives you that kind of obstinate behavior. And then until you give a report back to the parents, then their own consequences at home also stays. So that it is when you have given a better report that they now say, okay, fine, you can also enjoy what we have withdrawn from you at home. And that can be worked out if the teacher and the parents are on the same page on that. So it's not everything you can handle by yourself. Sometimes you need to involve parents.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Benjamin. Thank you for your time. Okay, finally, this is to Mrs. Adekogbe. Somebody asked, he said, does the time allotted allows this to be applicable in school? And I guess this question has to do with, I think, using the different learning styles of people in the classroom. So, okay, you can address that now.
Okay, good. The time for all our timetable, I mean, daily timetable, we have like 35, 45 minutes and so. What does that say to us as educators? And we are also managers. We are the managers of our class. We are the manager of the content. We are the manager of the curriculum. And you know what you can teach per time. You know, so at times we load lessons with 5, 6 objectives. And that makes it impossible for us to be able to do a lot of things that we love to do. So let us look at what we have to do. Let us study and then ensure that we have like not more than 3 per lesson. And then in the 3 per lesson, all you need to do is get a lot of activities. That concept that you are teaching. Get a lot of activities that will engage the different learning styles and different intelligences. And this has to do with planning. And this is where as educators, we need to really plan. We need to be sacrificial. We need to ensure that we create time for planning, even online, virtually. You know, you can get that. If you really plan your lesson, you can get a lot. Because when you plan your lesson, there are some things that you need. You also need to get back to the parent and tell them that, "Mark, plus, sir, can you please get this for Bidemi? Obidemi, we need this because in the next class we are going to have, we need to do an activity or we need to get to do something in this area." So it is planning our content. So you need to plan the content that you want to teach the children and don't overload your work. Because what is more important is not just you finishing the curriculum or the scheme of work. That's always been the issue with educators. We want to ensure that we finish the curriculum, we need to finish the scheme of work. And at the end of the day, the children don't even have anything. They can't remember anything that you have taught. So ensure that you follow suit bit by bit. If they have a good understanding, it's easier for you to build up because in every scheme of work, it is from simple to complex. So if they have a good understanding from week 1 to 3, 4, 5, and by the time you are getting up to 6, 7, 8, already they can build on what foundation they have laid. Thank you so much. I hope that addresses that. So
thank you very much, Ma.
The objective is not too loaded. Yes.
Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you for your time. At this point, I think we're about closing. So sorry we took this long. Just to address a few things. For those that just joined us today, because when we took that poll, about 21 persons signified that today is their first time. So the WhatsApp link we pasted on the comment section is for those that are just joining us for the first time and they are not on the WhatsApp group. Just to let you know, we have 3 WhatsApp groups. WhatsApp cannot accommodate, a group cannot accommodate more than 256 persons. So at the point of registration, we had to create 3 WhatsApp groups. So you don't have to join all 3 WhatsApp groups. If you know you're already in one, you don't have to click on this link to join any of the WhatsApp group. Then for those that are asking for more time for facilitators to answer your questions, I will advise that you post your questions on our WhatsApp group, then we'll forward to our facilitators. We can also paste the response back to you. So that is why joining the WhatsApp group is very important. So for those that are not in the WhatsApp group, I advise you to click on the WhatsApp link that is posted right now on the comment section and join the WhatsApp group. Then finally, your feedback, it's needed. I will also encourage you to provide your feedback with the feedback link provided on the comment section. So thank you once again, everybody, for your time, for staying with us. And we hope that we look forward to seeing you again next week, Thursday, same time, same station. Let me talk like presenter. Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Okay, bye.
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 Bye. Bye bye. See you next week.
Yeah, you can
Good
say
job,
your
you.
goodbyes. You can say your goodbyes. You can unmute yourself and say your goodbyes.
Bye bye. Oh.
Bye.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye to
Goodbye.
everyone.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye. This is Grace Adinowo. Thank you. I see you.
Thank
Bye.
Thank you
you.
for
Bye
joining us today.
bye.
Bye bye. Bye. Good
Bye.
job,
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
you. Good job,
Thank you.
you.
No.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.